Hello, my name is Keenan Newton, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for SharePoint Developers. We're going to talk about the various development options for Office and SharePoint 2013.
As previously covered, Office 2013 will continue to support the pre-Office 2013 extensibility models, including macros, COM add-ins, ribbon customizations, and those customizations built using the Visual Studio tools for Office. In this new Cloud App model for Office 2013, we have three different types of shapes for building apps for Office. The first one is the Task Pane app. The Task Pane app is available in the 2013 versions of Word, Excel, Project, and PowerPoint. This type of extensibility option is a great solution when creating reference or lookup solutions within an application. The second type of app is a Content app, and these are available in the Excel Office 2013 desktop and web clients. They allow you to create an app that's embedded within the document itself. For instance, an Excel workbook could contain a list of stores with their addresses for a sales report. A Content app within the workbook could show a map from Bing with pushpins for each of the store locations. Lastly is a Mail app. A Mail app is available in Outlook Office 2013, both the desktop and web clients. This allows for adding additional content based on the context of an email or appointment item in Outlook. For instance, an app could show a map from Bing Maps if it detects a physical address within the email or appointment. Another example is where you can have an app that returns data from a social site based on who the email was sent to or who originally sent the email. SharePoint 2013 developers are now presented with two core options when implementing solutions for their SharePoint 2013 sites. Each of these development options presents its own advantages and disadvantages. Full Trust solutions were introduced in SharePoint 2007 and allow developers to write code that can utilize the SharePoint server-side API. Custom code in these solutions is deployed into the hosting web applications of bin directory or the global assembly cache. Code can be secured using .NET's Code Access Security, but typically is run in Full Trust. These types of solutions are added to the farm in SharePoint by an IT admin with console access and deployed by someone with farm administration rights. These are the most unrestricted type of solutions that can be deployed via SharePoint. Full Trust solutions cannot be deployed in hosted SharePoint deployments. They are only available in online premise installations. With Full Trust solutions, developers must manually code any special logic that should happen when the solutions are upgraded or uninstalled. The second type of solution is apps for SharePoint. SharePoint 2013 introduces a new development model called the Cloud App model that addresses limitations of the solution-based approach. This new app model can leverage new support for our open web standards, such as OAuth, where apps can be granted permissions to do things within SharePoint sites. In addition to the OAuth support, SharePoint 2013 also improved the API surface and capabilities in the client-side object model and the REST APIs to support both browser-based applications as well as remote server-side code. In addition to the SharePoint store, Microsoft has made considerable investments to make the install, upgrade, uninstall process of apps a very end-user friendly experience, addressing a common developer challenge in previous versions of SharePoint in the solution-based approach. One limitation of the Cloud App model is that the server-side code is explicitly prohibited from these types of customizations. However, even with this limitation, apps for SharePoint can still do the same type of customizations as SharePoint 2010 with some re-architecture of the app itself. Looking back at SharePoint 2010, the common development approaches had a few challenges associated with them. With farm solutions, also known as fully trusted solutions, custom code was deployed into the server. These type of solutions generally meant there were a lot of things to deploy to the server, even if they were all deployed in a SharePoint solution package. This also meant the most deployments required a server touch, as an IT admin with console access would need to upload the solution to the server's solution store for deployment. In addition, server outages and most SharePoint errors could usually be traced to a custom code deployment to the server. These types of solutions are only available with on-prem deployments, and not with hosted deployments that only allow sandbox solutions. In SharePoint 2010, sandbox solutions have had their own challenges, in that they are limited in the number of things that you can do with them. Developers can work within a subset of the full server-side APIs and are blocked from making external database or web service calls. Both of these options, Farm and Sandbox solutions, require the developer to have a solid understanding of the SharePoint server-side APIs. To address many of these challenges developers and site owners had in previous versions of SharePoint, Microsoft has introduced a new development option for SharePoint 2013, the new Cloud App model. In this new model, apps do not necessarily live within SharePoint. Instead, the app's business logic executes within the context of either the client browser or externally from SharePoint on a separate web server, or it could be a combination of both. Apps are also more secure in that when they need to access SharePoint resources, such as lists and libraries, they must be explicitly granted permissions to do so. This is implemented using OAuth. When an app is created, the developer specifies which permission the app needs in order to function. When the app is installed, the user installing the app is prompted to accept the permission requests the app needs. Note, if they deny the permissions, the app is not installed. Once granted permissions, the app can then talk to SharePoint using the client-side object model or using one of the REST service endpoints. Once a developer has written an app, a developer can easily submit the app to the SharePoint store, making it easy for customers to acquire their app. With the new SharePoint app model, developers are now presented with two types of development options when creating customizations in SharePoint. The new Cloud App model is the preferred way of building custom applications for SharePoint 2013, as it provides the highest level isolation for processes, users, and data and content. It also provides the most flexibility in terms of development technologies and infrastructure choices, as these apps will not run on the same machines that SharePoint 2013 is installed on. However, for deep SharePoint customizations like branding changes or advanced administration scenarios, full trust solutions might make the most sense. When deciding between apps for SharePoint and SharePoint solutions, ask yourself the following questions. Does the extension require custom code that calls the SharePoint Server Object Model? Custom code against the SharePoint Server Object Model is not allowed in apps for SharePoint. However, a good majority of the APIs available in the SharePoint Server Object Model are available in the REST APIs and client-side object model. Next question you have to ask yourself. Does the extension have to deploy components that have broader scope than web, or does it have to have access to SharePoint components that are outside of the website where it is deployed? An app for SharePoint can access web services and other sources that are not hosted in SharePoint, but a SharePoint-only app cannot access SharePoint components outside of the website on which it is deployed. An externally based app for SharePoint can be granted permission to content outside its host website. Another question to ask yourself, who is the targeted user? An extension that would be used by SharePoint farm administrators or web application administrators, such as a farm maintenance or governance extension, would not be a good candidate for an app for SharePoint. And lastly, how big is the extension? Apps for SharePoint should not be full applications such as Microsoft Word, Excel, Access, or Visio. An app for SharePoint should do only a few close related tasks that surround only a few primary resources. In this module, we took a look at the various types of app development options that are available for both Office and SharePoint 2013.